Hey, welcome to On This Day. Today's date is January 31st. It is the last day of the first month of 2020. It is the 5th Friday of the year, and if today is your birthday, your birthstone is a garnet. And in my opinion, it's the worst birthstone of all. Never been a big fan of the garnet. It looks like a ruby and a topaz got together and had an ugly kid. Today is National Hot Chocolate Day. Now there's a holiday worth celebrating. Far better than National Banana Slug Day in June. If you could have a national day for something, what would it be? Curious? Let me know in the comment section below. That being said, let's take a look at the events of past January 31st. 1747, the first venereal disease clinic has its grand opening at London Lock Hospital. Everyone in attendance was clapping. Yes, comedy gold there, folks. 1865, the American Civil War. The United States Congress passes the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution, abolishing slavery, and submits it to the states for ratification. 27 states ratify the amendment by the end of 1865. Some states were territories at the time and ratified it after they gained statehood. Texas took their time and got around to it 5 years later in 1870. And then you have Kentucky and Mississippi. I guess these didn't get the paperwork or the facts. They're dog-hated. They thought it was junk mail and they threw it away. For whatever reason, Kentucky ratified the 13th Amendment in March of 1976. Yes, after rejecting it 110 years earlier, they finally got around to it. Mississippi, on the other hand, they went a little further. I guess they were out of town and figured the paperwork got lost in the mail, something. They signed the paperwork in 1995, but didn't certify it until February 7th, 2013. 2013. I have a couple tattoos that have been around longer than Mississippi has abolished slavery. 1930, 3M begins marketing Scotch tape. Yeah, it's been around that long. That's crazy. Almost 100 years now. 1945, U.S. Army Private Eddie Slovak is executed for desertion, the first such execution of an American soldier since the Civil War. While en route to his assigned unit, he took cover during an artillery attack and became separated from the replacement detachment he was with. He and another guy started walking away from the front line because they didn't want anything to do with that anymore. He found a Canadian unit and stayed there for about 6 weeks. They finally sent him back to his unit, which was an infantry unit on the front line. Again, he walked away. He found a unit away from combat and handed a cook a note. Like the first person he saw happened to be a cook. The note explained that he was deserting and wouldn't go back again. If they sent him back, he'd just walk away again. The cook took him to the MPs, which started the ball rolling. He was given the opportunity several times by different people to tear up the letter and go back to his unit. He refused, stating that he'd rather go to prison. I'm sure he never imagined he'd be executed. They had been having an increase in desertion since the Battle of the Bulge. That was a serious time during World War II. A lot of people were getting killed, and so a lot of people were deserting. And when Eddie Slovak came around, they decided they needed to make an example. The execution by firing squad was carried out at 10:04 a.m. on January 31st, 1945, near a small village in France. The unrepentant Slovak told the soldiers guarding him before they led him to the place of execution. That's what he said. "They're not shooting me for deserting the United States Army. Thousands of guys have done that. They just need to make an example out of someone, and it's me because I'm an ex-con." He'd done some time in jail when he was a young man. He said, "I used to steal things when I was a kid, and that's why they're shooting me. They're shooting me because I stole bread and chewing gum. I was 12 years old. 12 years later, at the age of 24, he was executed." 1950, the Cold War. U.S. President Harry S. Truman announces a program to develop the hydrogen bomb. This was like the sequel to the atomic bomb that ended World War II. I guess they were such a big hit in World War II, they needed some more. Now, Harry S. Truman personally is one of my favorite presidents. Mainly because the man had to make the toughest decision any human being has probably ever made. He destroyed 2 complete cities to end an ugly, horrible war that could have gone on forever. The problem was the Japanese were of the mentality of no surrender. They weren't going to surrender. And Harry S. Truman, how many Japanese and how many Americans would die when we finally had to invade the island of Japan? And he thought this was a better option. And he struggled with it. He actually quit listening to all the generals and all his advisors, and he called his best friend, who was a very intelligent man, I guess, and he helped him with the decision. Kind of funny, kind of strange. 2000, Alaskan Airlines Flight 261 crashes. An MD-83 experienced horizontal stabilizer problems and crashed into the Pacific Ocean off Point Mugu, California, killing all 88 on board. I live not too far from this. I remember when it was happening. It was all over the news while these people were still in the air trying to maintain this airplane. It was sad. The pilots tried desperately to regain control of the plane, and in the end, they went into the ocean, and after the investigation, it was all attributed to improper maintenance. They showed this one screw that controlled part of the plane that makes it go up and down, point up and point down, and the screw was stripped. And then they checked all the other MD-83s in the fleet, and they were all heading to the same fate. The same screw was stripping. 2020, today, the United Kingdom's membership within the European Union ceases in accordance of Article 50. After 47 years of being a member of the European Union, they're gone. They just quit. Basically, this is the Brexit stuff you've been hearing about for the last couple of years. I guess the gist of it, and I know very little of it, I just know the background noise, I hear about it and I don't really pay attention, but they don't want to have to take the same trade deals that the European Union put forth, and they want to make their own decisions, and that's what it is. And a lot of it has to do with money and trade and other things like that. It's a money game. Born on January 31st, 1946, Terry Kath, American guitarist and singer-songwriter. He was the lead guitarist and singer of Chicago. One of the singers, I should say. We just talked about him the other day because his birthday is actually January 23rd. He died 8 days after his birthday. Like I said before, he's one of the greatest guitar players ever. Most people don't really realize how good Chicago was before Terry Kath's death. Then they went all that pop, soft rock stuff and went, in most people's opinion, downhill, but they became more profitable, I guess you could say. 1970, Minnie Driver, English singer-songwriter, which I had no idea she sang. I like her. She's a great actress. I loved her in Good Will Hunting, but this here says she's a singer-songwriter. I've never heard her sing a note. Great actress, though. 1981, Justin Timberlake is born on January 31st. He's an American singer, songwriter, dancer, actor. This week in the news, that old washed-up budget version of Britney Spears, Jessica Simpson, she came out with a book about her life and said that she kissed Justin Timberlake once. Okay, the girl's biography must suck if all they're talking about on the news is kissing Justin Timberlake like 20 years ago. 1987, Marcus Mumford. Probably don't know who he is until I tell you what he's done. He's an American English singer-songwriter and lead singer of Mumford & Sons. Hence the name Mumford. Died on January 31st. This is a short section of this one. There's not a lot of people that were, a bunch of poets and painters and stuff like that. Nobody of real interest died on this day. I found one that was kind of interesting. Samuel Goldwyn, Polish-American film producer, died in 1974 on January 31st. He's the co-founder of Goldwyn Pictures. It's the G in MGM. Sadly, a bunch of the movies that he produced, like tons of them, I'd say close to, I forget the exact number, I was reading about it, but they're kind of up in the air on which ones did burn and which ones are still, it's weird. There's about 100 films that were burned in a 1965 fire that he produced. It was pretty sad. A lot of history went down with those. But yeah, that's it. That's the end of the video. There wasn't a lot of people that died on this day. Wish there was more. Actually, I don't wish there was more people that died on this day. I wish everyone lived forever. But in this case, not very good for the video. I'll see you guys Monday, February 3rd.